You got this long, lengthy prologue about the founding of your magical universe. Great, right? What does it have to do with the story is the question at the top of the reader's mind. And if that linkage isn't there, that material is wasted. It has to serve the story. And the only way it can do that is by satisfying the reader's curiosity about how these things are linked. I'm going to shift modes here, and I'm going to share this PDF. So this is Marcella's story, and she graciously agreed to come here today to talk a little bit about her how her novel's going, and we're going to delve into a particular problem that she's having that I think this sheet will help her solve. So if you can't see this, please open this up on your home computer, and you can zoom in at whatever level you find most useful. So Marcella, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we're going to delve more deeply into the sheet. You ready? All right. So this is her second novel she's working on with us. How long have you been working on this?
Probably, I don't know, like 8 months or something.
Good. So how far along with your first draft?
I finished the first draft.
Good. Right? That's about the right amount of time for a budding, experienced author. 8 months to a first draft. So what's the problem you're facing currently?
I guess the main problem, as you can see on this sheet, is that there's 2 bonus columns. I was not really sure kind of where to put as I go into the second draft, where to put my energy and focus for the bonus part of the story.
So if I remember what you said in our most recent meeting, how many words is the novel right now?
Oh yeah, that's my biggest problem. The novel is extremely short, and so right now it's about 60,000 words. And so I need it to be longer, and I hadn't really committed to a bonus element, and I think that will help me with some of my length, is like committing more to a bonus element of the story.
Good. So the problem is well structured, right? Most agents and publishers won't touch a 60,000 word work. Novels are a kind of commodity, much to our chagrin, and they have to be at least 85,000 words. Otherwise, I guess the publishing industry explodes, the machine that publishes things. So Marcella's got a good, solid set of words, right? But she needs more words. So if this were a high school English assignment, you would just type very, 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 very in front of every adjective, right? But we can't do that. Nor can we just tack on an extra couple of chapters. Why? Because it's not integrated with the story that is in her head, and therefore it won't be coherent. So the solution lies in thinking through the story and then adding something that is organic to Marcella's vision, right? And that can be weaved coherently into the story. And luckily enough, this is the perfect tool for that. So what I'm going to ask her to do is her MCS, which for those of you who aren't familiar with, is a 90-second version of her story. All right, so whenever you're ready, Marcella, please do your MCS.
Okay. 1 second. All right, so Celia lived in a village with her mother in Victorian England on the outskirts of the village, and they were outcast for practicing witchcraft. Celia discovers her mom after her mother commits suicide, and feeling guilty and alone, she ends up going to see her uncle, whom her mother had forbidden any contact with throughout her life. And she goes there, and her uncle is nothing what she expected him to be. He's kind of terrible, and lots of mysterious events occur, and eventually Celia's childhood best friend Annabelle comes to visit. Celia wants them to run away together, but Annabelle starts to display some similar types of the madness that Celia's mother was going through, and Annabelle has her own secrets. So at first, Celia blames this on the trauma that Annabelle has been through, but then some more mysterious events occur, and Celia discovers that she might be responsible for both women's ailments. And eventually, Celia finds some information in her mother's old bedroom to show that maybe Celia herself is going a little crazy, and that nothing she believed her whole life is real. But during a final confrontation with her uncle, he triggers a memory in her that reveals him to be the villain. Celia kills him, and along with friends that she didn't know she was making along the way, she covers it up, and they live happily ever after.
Excellent, right? You get fireworks. This took her 8 months, right? I don't want to diminish how much effort she has put into this. Having a story in your head like this is a huge milestone, an accomplishment. And once you have that story set in your head, your revisions are going to be so much easier, right? It's going to allow you to address issues like a shortage of words that we just talked about. So the stages of MCS are presented in one of our blogs, but in a nutshell, they're completeness, conciseness, stability, and drama. And she's pretty much at the final stage. So she has her MCS, right? Everyone got the story in general? Anyone not get the story? Just raise your hand. Complete story. Relatively concise. She told it quickly, right? It's stable. She's been telling it for the past month or so, and it's not really changing. And then the drama is a little bit tough on a Google Meet, but if she was telling this at a book reading or pitching an agent, she could amp that up a little bit, right? So now let's do the second tool, the value triangle. So what we're doing is we're looking for all 3 legs of the value triangle. So let's try to describe that, Marcella.
Describe.
So tell us a sentence about the character, and then a little bit about how she changes.
Yeah. So Celia is pretty selfish and overconfident, and kind of just oblivious to what other people are going through. And throughout the story, she starts to realize how some of those things are hurting her, and that she is actually able to relate to people more than she thought she was at the beginning.
And what's the main issue she's dealing with throughout this novel, or the main issue she's dealing with?
Like plot-wise, she's and I guess internally, I guess she's dealing with the loss of her mother, and wishing and trying to find these pieces of her, of who she was before she had Celia. And she thought her uncle was going to help her with that, but he's not very nice.
Good. And he's hiding this dark secret too, which you heard in the MCS.
Yeah, again, I didn't really point that. I missed that again when I said
it's
the MCS.
Interesting, right? So
yeah.
So her mom. So let's pause to reflect on that a second. So can I reveal the dark secret? I mean, for you constructing a story, and for us sort of helping her construct a story, We need to reveal that dark secret. So
Mhm.
spoiler alert for future readers of the novel. The uncle is Celia's father, right? Sort of a Chinatown situation. What's interesting is Marcella's mind doesn't want to go there.
It's like a secret for the entire book. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's maybe why. I don't know.
But I mean, you did gesture at it, right? The uncle is a villain, and that villainy included incest. So maybe that's sufficient,
Yeah.
right? But it is interesting that she's not putting that plot point at the top of her mind. And the second thing that's going on is she's what? She's trying to figure out whether she's a magic user or not. Now, again, that wasn't present in the MCS. So what does that suggest? So here's the choice. We've talked about this in coaching, right? The choice she's facing is whether to make the bonus about magic or the bonus about her mother's journal. So given what she said, we're going to try to use a little bit of story intuition. What do you think is the bonus and would make a better bonus for this novel? How many people vote for magic? Alex, Dan, Marcella? How many people vote for journal? Uh-oh. 4 votes for journal, 3 votes for magic. And not good, because my hearing and your intuition is going to be different, right? So the point of Bardsy's tools is to try out both of these avenues, right? Tell the MCS with magic as a bonus, or tell the MCS with the journal as a bonus. Now, what happened is the MCS kind of avoided both of those issues. And I'm guessing this is a psychological block. She doesn't want to deal with this. And so she has sort of skipped over that part of the story. So she's written this out, right? And the one thing you'll notice, or that I noticed on the spreadsheet, was what? What's the first thing we notice? So this, I asked her to do this spreadsheet this way because we were testing which would make the better bonus. And she has to rewrite this whole thing to make it coherent. Anyone notice anything? The first thing I noticed is there's a lot more entries in the magic column than there is in the journal column. Off the top of, initial analysis, that's going to be a lot more fruitful. There's a lot more material there. Therefore, it's going to be easier for her to have the story necessary to perform this integration. Again, the bonus is separable from the story, but at the same time, she's not even thinking about the journal.
Yeah. When you said practice telling the MCS with the different bonuses, Celia herself doesn't even know anything about the journal. It is truly a bonus in the sense that it's not even it's a separate entity that Celia doesn't even know about, but it's the reader's getting these extra little glimpses throughout. So that's why I was just interested in that idea, because I'm all right, well, I can't really tell the MCS with the journal unless I say it separately outside of Celia's point of view.
But this, okay, I respect that, Marcella, but I would point out that the journal is part of the story the reader's experiencing.
Yeah.
So therefore, it has to connect to the overall narrative. So if you consciously left it out, you have to consciously try to not leave it out and see how it naturally fits into the story you're telling. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The other reason I was leaning towards magic, besides what you pointed out with just it being me being able to fill up the cells in that column easier, was that like some people will like everyone's enjoyed the journal entry so far. There haven't been that many of them, but a lot of people will skip things like that in books.
Exactly.
So I don't really want to make that like a major part of the story if like and have vital information in there if people are going to like skip it possibly.
Right. This is a big problem. At Bardsy, we call it prologitis. Right. You got this long, lengthy prologue about the founding of your magical universe. Great. Right. What does it have to do with the story is the question at the top of the reader's mind. And if that linkage isn't there, that material is wasted. It has to serve the story. And the only way it can do that is by satisfying the reader's curiosity about how these things are linked. Same thing with these journal entries. The reader needs to see a clear entry, but Marcella has a journal entry roughly every 3 chapters that is sort of parallel to the story. So the question is what kind of value are they providing to the reader? What I would suggest is it has to be tightly integrated with the story at hand, sort of at the point in the book the journal appears, it has to be integrated in the story of the book at that point. Now, there's ways she could, I mean, this is a creative challenge, right? One for Marcella to solve. And there's several ways she could do it. At Bardsy, we're not going to dictate, do this, right? Because that imposes something on an author that inhibits vision and coherent storytelling. But it is a creative challenge. So she has to think about ways of either integrating the journal in better, increasing its frequency, right, or reducing its frequency. Those are her 3 basic options. I mean, your authors, your peers, your beta readers, they're colleagues, right? We serve 2 functions. We are reader proxies. I didn't understand this, or this part really affected me. I started crying or I started laughing. And they serve as sounding boards, brainstorming. So that's the thank you for that, Rosemary and Dan, right? But at the same time, this is Marcella's story. So she has to weigh these options and figure out what's going to be best for her. And the way we weigh options is by diving into them. We commit to one. We write according to that option, or we use our tools according to that option and see how far we get before we decide it's either the option we're going to continue with or we're going to discard it and go back to a different option, a different choice. But I want to leave on a more positive note, or her example. Look at this. Go through this and look at this. Column 1 plot is excellent, right? This is a model for you to use. And you can see that from her MCS as well, right? The plot is down solid. Good continuity, enough story for every chapter. Each cell captures that chapter well with terms of action and conciseness and etc. Character, again, excellent, right? This is focused on Celia and how the reader is going to resonate with her. Could have a little bit more information about who Celia is, her identity, and how that identity is evolving over time. How the reader is coming to know her, one track, and then how that identity is changing, the arc track on the other. And then I think this is a resolvable problem. So let's give Marcella a big round of applause and thank her for demoing for us today. These demos are very tough, right? But I hopefully you found this valuable. Yes? Good. All right. And our second demo for today is going to be Joe. So we're running out of time. We'll probably go 5 minutes over. So Joe, can you do your MCS for us? And I will pull up your sheet whenever you're ready.
Sorry. Sole survivor of a fatal car crash and subsequent prescription pill abuser, Jessie, is finishing out her night behind a bar at an off-track betting club when she comes across disgruntled former employee Scott Bauer. He's come to the building to exact his revenge with witchcraft. Unfortunately, on the same night, a regular of the club named Salt has decided to stage an armed robbery. But when Scott's plan goes sideways, and he unleashes a demon who has actually been stalking Jesse since the accident, it triggers a series of events that lead to a hostage situation. So Jesse and her friends and their captors are stuck in the building with the demon overnight. People get picked off one by one, while Jesse staves off the physical and psychological attacks of the demon, all while facing her own demon and going through drug withdrawal. She winds up forming a trauma bond with Salt, the robber. And in the end, it's him who sacrifices himself by trying to pull the demon back to hell so that she can escape, which she does. The police arrive, she escapes, she lives to see another day. 20 years later, when we follow up with Jesse, we find out she never really escaped either of her demons. The end.
Excellent work, right? So how long did that take? How long have you been working on this, Joe?
I don't know, my whole life. No. I think like 2 years.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 2 years of solid work. And she has a very good first draft. So what's the issues you're facing now? What are the issues you're facing now?
In the book, or?
Yeah, in terms of turning the draft you're on into a polished manuscript.
Oh, finding time to do it. That's my major problem.
Exactly. Allocating more time. Anything else?
No, well, you should probably tell me.
I'm just going to base this on stuff we talked about already. I will say, I mean, she just produced a first chapter that I think is past our test. So the test we use for first chapters is called retelling. And coincidentally, it captures, not coincidentally, intentionally it captures the criteria we use for judging our contests. And she passed the retelling test at like a 98 out of 100. So she has that. She's got her MCS. The only thing I think she needs to focus on is committing to the resolution, right? You'll notice, and I always say you'll notice, because paying attention to how other writers use these tools and paying attention to yourself as you use them is going to be the easiest way to detect current issues. So she took a pause at the end. She sort of said 20 years later, then she was uncertain. She said her final sentence, she paused, and then she said the end. That is not someone who is confident with their ending. Everything else is going great, right? But from listening to that MCS, we can tell she's still not sanguine with her ending. So she either has to commit to that ending, right? She's thinking about this epilogue, or try something else, or what? But we want to see a stronger end to your MCS. And then, look at her value spreadsheet. So what she's doing now, if I may be so bold as to put words into her mouth, is to revise, right? She introduced a couple changes about probably 2 months ago that mean that the earlier chapters need updating. So I don't have a good analogy for this. It's kind of like you design an airplane, you add a more powerful engine. That means you got to fix the wings, the tail, rebalance everything, integrate it with the avionics. In this case, she has to make sure that the changes she made to Jesse's character are consistent with the identity and arc Jesse displayed throughout the earlier chapters. So that's the purpose in this case of doing this sheet. And again, you'll see that it's very well done. One of the things I don't like to do in teaching people is to present perfection, right? Here's the answer key. Do it this way. The best way to learn is to see works in progress and to follow along fellow authors as they work through them, right? As they move from one stage to another. But this is thank you, Marcella, for demonstrating how this can help solve a problem. For Joe, the demonstration is more about how it can help you guide revisions. Right? She's already made the choices of how to break up her chapters, what the focus in each chapter is going to be, and so on. What I want to do last is ask her to just talk through her first couple chapters using this sheet. Let's see if you can do 3 chapters. In talking it through, we're looking to see if it flows smoothly, right? If it's interesting, if the points are coming across. So this is how you assess your sheet, your continuity and value delivery sheet, and then use it in your writing. If you can talk it through smoothly and then get to the chapter you're working on, then you're doing okay. If you can't talk it through smoothly, there's a problem. And to the extent you do it aloud, it's going to be much better at detecting these kinds of issues. So Joe, why don't you talk through your first couple chapters based off of the sheet, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. So yeah, it's Jesse's waiting for her drug dealer to show up, and that's when Scott shows up, and that's kind of why she decides to just let him go, even though he's not supposed to be there, because she's so hyper focused on getting drugs before the night's over. That's when the robbery takes place. While the robbery is taking place, Scott does his little spell, opens the portal to hell, and then when he comes like running away from what he's released, he's shot by one of the robbers. After the shooting, like in the aftermath, during the chaos, Jessie starts getting these visions of this void that's opened in the basement. She's the only one that can see it's happening. And then she blacks out. When she wakes up, they're in a different part of the building. She's very confused, and realizes no one else saw that. And she questions, like, am I going through withdrawal? Am I crazy? Or is this real? And she kind of keeps it to herself. While the hostages are all moved into the office where the safe is kept so that the robbers can get all the money. And during that transport, she sees the demon for the first time, kind of skulking in the shadows. And then that confirms to her, like, oh shit, this is real. And that's the first 3 chapters.
Got it. So, I'm sorry. You get confetti.
Okay.
Yay. Because I didn't want to give you dual fireworks. All right. The continuity is there, right? You can see how she's going step by step through the chapters. Now, what I noticed was the important part is Scott flees, right? So that seems to be more of a plot element as opposed to being a bonus. So the bonus is, and I'm speculating here, but it's worth considering that the bonus is all about, the dealing with a demon, right? This is a horror story. So the bonus has to be more about the mood and how Jessie feels, right? If I remember the line from the first chapter, it's sort of the creeping darkness of foreboding, right? And the other candidate for bonus is something that, remember you had that introduction about the fruit fly? So that would be another good candidate for the bonus. If you can make that thematically relevant, then it should be part of the bonus, and you can substitute that. The bonus as it stands, at least on first reading and other experience I've had with it, seems like it's more attuned to the plot. What else? That's basically it. Her revisions are on track, and this tool, I believe, is going to help dramatically in making sure those revisions go well. And I think Joe is doing a good job of this, but we have to make sure that that demon or the eeriness is in every chapter. What does that do? Well, it reinforces our genre, and then it gives rise to the kind of tension that you want a scary novel to have, because that we know is going to satisfy readers. All right, Thank you very much, Joe. Big applause. And don't let her modesty deceive you, because this is a great project. And not only has she worked very hard on this, but her efforts have produced something that is extremely compelling. And as she polishes it, right, then that'll put the cherry and the, I guess, frosting on top, and then we'll be done. All right, so 11:34. Any last questions from anyone today? Okay. All right, I want to wish you well. If I would, strongly advocate for the use of this tool as well as any other Bardsy tools. If you're looking for support, both in terms of confidence, collegiality, etc., or you're looking for practice in using the tools, we have that available for you. We're starting another series of courses, I believe, in January. And you're welcome to email us at any time if you have questions or thoughts on what happened today. All right, so thank you very much for attending. And hopefully we will see you all soon. Happy holidays and have a happy, great 2026.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity. Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback. And our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.